the ear scene was really hard for me because I never got to rehearse it because I didn't really know what I was gonna do. Like in the script it said, Mr. Blonde maniacally dances around the manacled cop. You know, when you read something like that, you go, what do I do? I dance around the manacled cop. And I said I didn't understand. And I kept saying to him, what in the name of God you want me to do, man? I can't dance. And at that point, he was supposed to be handcuffed. And we figured out the duct tape thing later. We made that up later. It seemed a little more, the duct tape was more I don't know, it was more cruel, I thought, or more unpredictable. But I didn't, every time we got to that point of rehearsal, and he would say, okay, Michael, you know, what are we gonna do? And I'd say, I don't know. And he'd say, well, okay, you know, we'll figure it out on the day. We'll figure it out on the day. And so, finally, the day came and I had to do it. And I was like, oh my God. And so all I really wanted to know was how much room did I have on either side of him in the freaking chair, you know. It's like, he's over there and I'm over here. Mr. Orange is bleeding to death. And like, once I get over there, how much room do I have to dance around the manacled cop? And so he gave me enough, like about 5 feet on each side, so I could get the razor out of my boot. That's why I threw the gas can, because I wasn't gonna set it down, you know. And if I'm gonna start a fire, I don't want that thing sitting there, so I threw it. And then he was gonna use a song from the Blasters called the Barroom Blitz. And he didn't have the rights for Steelers Wheel. And he said, listen, I want to use Stuck in the Middle, but I don't have the rights for it, so I can't use it. And we're probably going to end up with Barroom Blitz. And I said, oh man, well, I said, you know, I think Stuck in the Middle would probably be a lot better. And he was like, yeah, well, and I said, so why don't I do one take where I actually sing to that one? So if you do get the rights, we'll be able to use it. And so and then I was really stuck because I wasn't really sure I knew the words. So I asked him if he would play it for me. So they got a boom box and they put it on the set. You guys got to remember, there was nobody had cell phones and all that shit. You know, iPads and the internet that didn't exist, okay? And they just had a big boombox with a cassette tape in it with that song on it. And so when I went over to Tim, and I'm sitting there looking at him, you know, and the roll on it, they just hit the button and it started to play. So I was actually listening to it, and it wasn't that hard to come up with a little half-ass kind of thing that I did. It was all I could think of, because I can't dance at all. But I thought it would look like a guy who thought he was cool and he was a cool dance, right? I thought I could get away with it by doing that. And then the more that I kind of did it, I started to turn around in a circle and I started to kind of get off on it, and it became fun. And then I had to go to the car and get the gas out of the car and come back in. And by the time it got to the ear, you know, I couldn't, it was too awkward to reach over him. And I couldn't get a hold of it to cut it off. And so I just jumped on him, I sat on him so that I could get a hold of it and get it off. And so most of that stuff happened like in the spur of the moment, you know, because they just rolled on everything no matter what I did. And he shot a version where the camera is right at the side of Kirk's head, and you actually see the damn thing getting sawed off. And they obviously had a prosthetic with a tube that came up the back of his neck. And so as it slowly came off, the blood was shooting out, you know. And it was getting all over my face and everything, and I was like, God, yeah. And then I had it, and I threw it, and then he wanted to do, she doesn't feel well. She's remembering that scene, she's gonna pass out. And so then they did another version where he goes, you know what, I don't want to necessarily see you do it. And I said, okay, man. So when I jumped on him, he just panned over to the wall, and you just see this green wall. And you can hear Kirk's going, whatever he's saying. And then I step into frame holding it. And it's weird because you think that you saw me doing it, but you didn't really. Because the version that's in the movie, that stayed in the movie, is the one where you don't actually see me do it. I have it in my hand, but because you heard it, you subconsciously think that you saw it. And that's part of the genius of him, is to have concocted something like that, you know. And he also, I just recently found out that he had to show a lot of stuff to the censors because of the nature of the film and some of the language back then, which people didn't say shit like that in the movies back then, which was why it was so effective. But he had to show a lot of things to the censors, and he knew that if he showed the censor that thing coming off, that they would say, well, sorry, you know what, you can't use that. And he'd say, well, okay. And so he would have given them an okay, so that later, if there was something he really wanted, they would have to let him do it, because he had acquiesced, you know what I'm saying? He was playing along. And, but when I had it, I didn't know what to do with it. And you can see the look on my face when I'm holding it. I really, honestly, I didn't know what to do with it. Because we had never rehearsed it. And I had it, man, and I was like, man, okay. And if you watch the movie again, you can look at my face, and I honestly did not know what to do with it. And he was standing by the camera, and he was saying, Michael, throw it, you know, toss it, get rid of it, get rid of the ear. And I was thinking, yeah, you know. And I didn't really just want to get rid of it. So I went, hey, can you hear me? I started talking in it. I mean, it was an ear, right? So, you know, it seemed like a logical thing to do. And it seemed to that guy, it would be so horrible to do that. I thought, wow, man, if we really want to make this something dark, you know, I'm going to really fuck with this guy. I'm going to talk in it. And then I threw it, you know, and then it was all funny. But then like 2 days later, and nobody said anything about it. And like 2 days later, Quentin comes up to me and he goes, hey, Michael, you remember when you were talking in the ear? And I go, yeah. And he goes, it's in the movie. We're gonna leave it in the movie. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool, you know. I get a writing credit. And he goes, no. And I said, oh, well, I never thought it wasn't gonna be in the movie, but thank God that he left it in there. But honestly, that's really exactly how it happened.